All right, I think now's the opportune time to hop in and start this webinar. Um, I'm your host, Josh. What we're gonna go through today is how tech expands job site access for complex construction projects. So a little while back, I had the opportunity to sit down with Jacob over at TCE, and Jacob is one of the most intelligent minds in construction that I've had the opportunity to speak with, and has shared some incredible insight on the complexity of their project. They're working on a mass transit project in New York City, and how technology in general, one of those being OpenSpace, has helped them just be much more efficient and be able to build in very complex sites, which I imagine a handful of you all today who are attending are dealing with some of the same stuff. Um, so I'm really excited for everyone here to get the opportunity to hear Jacob and his story. And please feel free to ask questions in the chat. I'm happy to answer those the best of my ability. And let's hop in.
Yeah, Colin Sucher. I'm an account executive at OpenSpace. I specifically cater towards the Northeast market.
Beautiful. And then Jacob.
Yeah, my name is Jacob Shavel. I am run the innovation team here at TCE, an infrastructure contractor based in New York City. Get into it a little bit more in a few minutes here.
Nice. Yeah, so quick intro for the attendees on who OpenSpace is. OpenSpace is an automated 360 reality capture solution. So think 360 camera, plop it on your helmet, just simply click your starting point in the application and walk. And what will happen is this camera will capture a 360 photo every half a second and automatically stitch all of that data and information together to give you what we like to call a Google Street-like view environment that you could then work out of. And we'll save a little bit more of that for Jacob and us to go over in a minute, but OpenSpace has been around since 2017. We're currently have captured over 51 billion square feet of space across the world. We're in 91 different countries, and we get to work with awesome people like Jacob and TCE. So want to pass it over to Jacob so he could tell us a little bit more about TCE and we could hop into it.
Sure. Thanks, Josh. So TCE is a construction company working on infrastructure projects in New York City with a particular focus on the subway system for the MTA. We specialize in systems-heavy projects, systems such as signaling and traction power, vertical transportation like elevators and escalators, and finally the communication systems, which in our network include things like networking, CCTV, access control, passenger communication systems, and then fire alarm and life safety systems. In our environment, there's a super high level of complexity dealing with all of these different systems and making them interact with one another, and that's really our niche that we focus on. Alongside MLJ and JTrack, who are two of our sister companies in the Iovino Enterprises family, TCE is heavily involved in numerous jobs that are part of critical strategic initiatives for the MTA C&D department. We're currently a part of 3 different contracts that are making 13 NYCT stations ADA accessible, which includes elevators and escalators, ramps, platform edge repair, speakers and signage to support these things. We're also part of a couple of component repair jobs, which are really all about state of good repair for communication, structural steel, water and leak mitigation, and just kind of general maintenance throughout the system. We're also involved in several contracts that are repair and improvement from Superstorm Sandy. So for people who aren't on the East Coast, it might be hard to imagine that we're still dealing with the effects of the storm that was almost a decade ago. It really flooded out the entire New York City system, and besides the immediate damage that it did, really made us realize how much lack of resiliency there is in the system. And so there are a lot of ongoing projects now, not only to fix damage that is still gone unfixed, but also to create higher resiliency for future storms and other threats like this. Finally, TCE is really excited to be working on the first ever MTA design build computer-based train control system. The scope of this project is the entire G line, which runs north-south from Queens through Brooklyn. It's the only subway line in New York City that doesn't pass through Manhattan. It's really, really critical for those outer borough commutes, which includes millions of people. And so we are bringing the entire G line to modernization with the CBTC system in alliance with a French company, Thales, who is designing and supplying all of the signaling equipment to do that. Excuse me, to do that. So those are just a few of the projects that we're working on and kind of like the scope of the work that we like to do here in New York.
That's an impressive lineup of work, and especially the line that's connecting. What'd you say? Boston,
Queens and Brooklyn. It's north-south, basically like the outer borough line. It's the only one. So it's really critical. It has been often hated on in New York.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that we can change that a lot and make the G a reliable thing that people are excited to rely on.
So that point you made on the critical aspect of it, and I know from our conversations and from your conversations with Sucher, a lot of what you're doing is evaluating technology to manage these critical projects. Like, what for you in 2023 in this lineup of work that you guys have going on, what is some of your major strategy on the technology front? And like, what excites you in the tech space of construction to help these projects from start to finish?
Yeah, great question. So I think that although we do tons of different types of projects, a unifying factor that we see across the space is because we're dealing with the only 24-hour public transit service in the United States that is relied on by 10 million people a day. Gaining access to workspace is incredibly difficult. And so we get very small windows where we can actually get onto a job site and do what we need to do. So coordination and communication they're important to all construction companies. In an environment like ours, they're absolutely paramount. If you're only getting 8 hours or 12 hours in the week to get on site, you have to do everything you can beforehand to ensure that you're getting 8 hours worth of work done when you do get to the site. So technologies that let us like communicate and coordinate better are really key to doing this. This problem is like even exacerbated by the fact that many of our projects include like some disparate locations. So whether that may be like different subway stations, which are scattered across the 5 boroughs. I know like 2 years ago, I was involved with a project where we had one station up at 207th Street, Inwood. It's the very northern tip of Manhattan, and another one down at Flatbush Avenue in South Brooklyn. For anyone who's been to New York, those things are worlds apart. I mean, in real distance, it's maybe like 10 miles. And in city distance, it's like 2 hours on the subway. So there's no way that a project manager could be at both of those places in a given day, let alone a given week. You add in the fact now we're going to throw some other stations in Queens or deep Brooklyn, and really relying on digital technologies to help bridge the gaps that physical locations cause for us has been really critical to us, and is an ongoing push that we're trying to make. Yeah,
no, I mean, that makes sense. And especially it's funny because I'm down here in Texas, and 10 miles is like, my trip. Yeah. Out of my neighbor's house, right? Right? And so when you guys think of this and you think of like technology, and we've been working together for 6 months, and our focus is reality capture. Like why reality capture? One, and like how has it helped you guys in these past few months for those type of projects where like it is critical that you have your people on the project within that 8-hour time span within a day?
Yeah, so I think reality capture, the technology speaks to or allows us to really invest in and dive a little deeper into like one of our core principles here, which is our company president Chris Dawson harps on over and over that we are meant to be training our replacement at any given time. So construction is an industry, is an industry that's really heavy on experience. Those who have done it before know how to do it again. And particularly in a system that's as unique as New York's, there are certain types of expertise that simply can't be replicated elsewhere. So like, for example, our VP of construction, Warren Tobin, came to TCE after a 30-year career at the MTA, where he ended up as the assistant chief signal officer. Basically, this means that for New York's signaling world, Warren's like one of the 2 or 3 most knowledgeable people on the planet, full stop. There's no way to replicate what he's learned being out there over decades. And we have a lot of these types of subject matter experts, certainly plenty who have come over to us from the public agencies that we've served. And their expertise and their experience is a resource and an asset that we can't possibly overstate the value of. So something like reality capture, when we talk about like saving subway time, it may seem a little banal, but now instead of Warren having to pick the 1 or 2 stations that he gets to in a given day to offer his insights, I can have Warren log in online and be at 20 sites within an hour. There's really no way to replace that and to replace his experience and his expertise. And we feel that using OpenSpace is a great way to kind of, multiply his reach and get more out of him in a given day, although he's already, the hardest working man on the planet. There are just so many opportunities for us to get our experts' eyes on something that otherwise they couldn't see. And that really helps, foster that learning environment, training your replacement. Warren can get on the OpenSpace with some younger engineers and show them what he sees. And he can do that on a daily basis. Whereas if he had to go out to the field and walk around with these people, maybe they're only getting some time with him, once a month, or something like that. So there's really some strong multiplying factors for a lot of our most experienced, experts out there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And that's a piece we hear often, even outside of OpenSpace, where the tech is also exciting that younger generation, which there's a labor constraint right now, right? To get them excited about construction and moving into the seats that will need to be filled soon. So kind of taking a step back, tell us about your experience. So it sounds like the reality capture has been helping, do more with less. You guys are able to be out on sites where you physically just can't get to in cases before. What was it like bringing OpenSpace on for your team and adopting that? What was that experience like?
Yeah, so, I think, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this too, like adoption is the thing that we talk about most at all of these trade shows. We talk about it in my team, certainly on a near daily basis. It's something that gets harped on like every single year when the big 4, like McKinsey and whoever write the same report about how construction is so outdated. Yep. And I think the common trope that you see over and over is like, there's a cranky old foreman and some 20-something with like shiny boots chasing him around with an iPad, trying to make him do something new. And at all these conferences, I think that story is kind of told like with a little bit of a sneer. Like obviously the kid with the iPad is right. From our point of view, that cranky older person is the one who's been in these tunnels 30 years, who knows this world in a way that we can never replicate. And so again, it's really like a cultural push for us to always be leaning on those people. Of course, there is some truth that the cranky old guy doesn't want the iPad. And the young people are a little easier to convince to try something new. So when it came time to start trying out OpenSpace, you put a 3D camera in the hands of some 30 and under engineers. That was a really easy sell. Our engineers are really smart, really good, and really eager to try new things. And so giving them this hardware, which is super easy to operate, and explaining the value of OpenSpace was a really easy sell to them. Now, as far as selling it to, the cranky old foreman, it becomes way easier when they can see the value. And the value is really clear. It's, hey, do you want to get do on the subway for 90 minutes, or do you want to log onto your computer and be at that station virtually? Actually, we've been somewhat shocked at how easy adoption has been because the value is just so clear and the lift to start is so low. So as compared with some of the other softwares that we've taken on in the past year or two, where training might include, multiple hour-long sessions over a couple of weeks with like reiterated efforts to like keep on getting touches. OpenSpace we've kind of refined it down to like a 30-minute kickoff call and some training materials, and projects are often running really, really quickly. They're out taking captures the same day that they got a camera in their hands. So
is that training, is that working well for both kind of the younger crowd you were talking about and the guys who have been in the tunnels for 30 years?
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of, we'll do team-wide trainings when available. I mean, it's pretty difficult to get an entire project team in a room at once. But we do kind of try to split up the responsibilities for actually managing the hardware towards younger people, usually just because our field engineers happen to be younger people, and those are the folks that are out there taking walks all day long. And so that's another thing that's easy about adoption is I don't have to teach that foreman how to use the camera. I just need to teach them how to use the web app. And the younger folks are picking up the camera. I mean, it's like using AirPods. It's pretty easy to connect the thing and get going with it. So while we've tailored trainings a little bit, depending on who we're speaking to, for the most part, it's been overwhelmingly smooth. I mean, if we could turn on and get started other products as easily as we have with OpenSpace, we would be really cooking.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So you kind of touched on it a bit, why the guys who have been in the business for 30 years, like why they're, getting excited about OpenSpace because of the value that they're seeing by being able to go to that site virtually and see it, instantly instead of having to travel there. What else are they telling you of like why they're, what's the value of an OpenSpace from their perspective on top of that virtual capability?
So a feature of OpenSpace that I've been hearing a lot of feedback about, that's personally also my favorite, and I think probably the most underrated feature of OpenSpace, is field notes. Anyone who spent time in the field is going to like relate to this story, which is that your camera roll very quickly stops being pictures of your family and becomes hundreds and hundreds of pictures of lighting panels and conduit and Hindorf and like all of this other stuff, just to track what's going on throughout a given day. Now, when we take all those pictures from the camera roll, we email them to ourselves. They're now in some like OneDrive folder labeled image 1, image 2, image 3. Now in 6 months, when I go look for that thing I was looking for, I'm scrolling through 500 pictures. I have no idea when stuff is from. I don't know where it's from. I don't really have any context anymore about these images once I've left the week that they were taken. So Field Notes allows our people to get all of the benefits of like, the geospatial tracking that OpenSpace does and provide a lot of context to these images. So one project that comes to mind is we have one of our senior engineers was out surveying a station in Queens, and he was going to identify all of the different access nodes, which are out on the platform level, which is where you can like get access to different equipment to make repairs. And in the past, he would have gone and taken 50 mobile phone pictures of 50 identical access nodes, and then have to go back weeks later and try to figure out, was this access node 1 or 3 or 45? He put them onto OpenSpace, and now they're all geolocated along the platform. He knows exactly where they all are. He knows he can write in the notes, this is this node, this is what I have to do to it. This one's being removed. This one's being updated in these manners. Like, being able to contextualize all of these images, even though they're not 3D and it's not like there's no fancy shiny AI there, has been hugely valuable for people out in the field and back in the office to start storing a lot more of their, like visual data about the project.
Yeah.
And we're kind of letting like reins go on that and letting folks use Field Notes how they want to, because we're seeing people come up with really cool ideas. I never would have thought to have told Anthony to go out and mark all of those access nodes like that, but it made sense to him, and now we have a new workflow that we just discovered. So it's been really cool to like let people go and run with it and see what they come up with.
Yeah, and you're right. Like Field Notes, I I say this all the time, is our most underrated feature. It's because it's not like shiny, right? It's not like the BIM compare where everybody gets super excited about. But we did a case study where like field notes actually saved one of our customers 2 full PM salaries, which is what you were talking about with the labor constraints, like being able to virtually travel to a site if a PM's overseeing multiple projects and drop that field note allows him to do much more with less. So do you find that your team is because you can do field notes from both like the desktop at home or on your tablet or phone in the field? Where do you see it happening most, or do you see it happening on both sides, like in the office and the field?
So I think right now we're definitely seeing it a lot more from the field side. And I would say that that's potentially, or at least partially, due to the fact that maybe the people that are most comfortable with the platform at this point are the ones who are out there using the mobile app. They just have locked the most hours with it. But one thing that we've started doing that we're encouraging more and more is like to get some of our subject matter experts using field notes from the office so that they can go and virtually tour a space and say, hey, this is something you need to be thinking about. You know, 2 guys in particular, I think of our like vertical systems manager, Kevin Moylan, who again comes from the MTA, full career there. He ran a team of a few thousand people overseeing all of the vertical systems at the MTA. So when he has something to say about an elevator, everyone listens. And another is James Tracy, who's the same for us from the communications department. And so both of those guys, we've been working to get for them to start adding some field notes from the office side, where they're just a few notes typed in, you know, on a certain view, really gives a whole lot of perspective and help that otherwise the field personnel who are responding to those field notes like wouldn't have been able to get from them.
Yeah, that's huge. What do you find most exciting about OpenSpace?
I think for me, really, it's like at the conceptual level, having a virtual version of what we're building, living alongside the physical. I think that, you know, having experience being out and being a field engineer, you become extremely familiar with your job site over days and weeks and months and years of standing and working in a place. And because of the familiarity, you start to, or you potentially start to like lose some perspective on things that you see every day. And so being able to get that outside point of view in a super quick and easy way is incredibly valuable. And I know when I was out in the field, like having someone senior to me come and check in was always like the best part of the week. You know, because we work in a purely gray field environment, meaning we're working in existing places with extant systems, we don't get a lot of the benefits that you see in new construction with really fancy digital twins and 5D BIM models and these really, really cool systems that just simply we're not ready for in the New York City infrastructure environment. So I see OpenSpace, although, you know, we haven't gotten to start including BIM there. And we haven't started creating digital twins of any of these systems that we work on. No one working in our environment has, you know. Although we haven't taken those steps, I see OpenSpace as kind of the first step to that portal where everything we build, everything we do exists virtually as well. And they kind of grow and live alongside each other. And so I think OpenSpace is our, you know, toehold there and our way through the door. And we see a pretty exciting future over the next 5 years for OpenSpace to help us get into some of those next level systems as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just curious, like what other tools, technologies are you using in tandem with OpenSpace? Do you find exciting that's creating that digital world for you guys?
So one that comes to mind that we haven't integrated with OpenSpace yet is a software called FieldWire, which is just like a project management software that allows us to do all of our drawing management, task management, reporting, and all of these like processes that were traditionally done on paper and pen. You know, again, remember, we work with public agencies, so a lot of these things don't get to change, even if we know there's something better. You know, like a safety form has to be on a piece of paper. Doesn't matter that you can sign something on an iPad with your finger. That's not the way it works. So FieldWire has been kind of this other piece of going digital and virtual for us that is a lot less about like the work and the physical world, and a lot more about all of our paperwork and our progress tracking, and keeping track of version control on all of our drawings. So pairing those two things together, I think you now can get like a level of robustness just on your computer of understanding a job's health and its status that before we had these tools, I mean, you had to go sit down with the team and ask 30 questions to get the same idea.
Jacob, I have a question for you to kind of spin off of that. And I think you and I have talked about this before in person, but you mentioned that one of the things you found exciting about OpenSpace is just creating, like a digital world for your projects to live in. So my question is, I feel like a lot of folks in our industry, if you bring up the idea of like a virtual world, a lot of people's heads, they kind of think of, oh, he's talking about like NFTs and the metaverse and like an Oculus VR. And it kind of goes to things that, haven't been hugely successful or accepted across that. What do you think companies like us, or just even construction in general, needs to do to get the stigma away from virtual world and people thinking of, oh, he's talking about like a minted NFT in the metaverse on South Beach and an Oculus headset, to real practical applications like you're using? What do you think companies like us and just, companies like yourself are doing to remove that stigma from VR as like a game to, there's very real practical application across this industry?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you're totally right. The word like virtual reality immediately freaks some people out. And I think we see that with plenty of other tech terms that are coming into the construction technology space. For our company, it's really a cultural thing led by our president, Chris Dawson. Like, he understands the need to standardize and create scalable processes and workflows and invest in tools that help our people be better and get more done in a day. And so for us, it's really a cultural push that starts with Chris and comes down through the innovation team and out throughout the organization. I think at a general level, or speaking to, a company like OpenSpace, how to help continue to push this change that is really exciting for our industry, is really about meeting people where they're at. And it might sound a little sappy, but again, like this trope of the cranky old guy and the young guy with the iPad, when we go to all these conferences, like that cranky old guy is kind of derided or laughed at in a certain sense. And like, we have to remember that that's the person who does this, and we're the kids trying to help them. And so framing it as a way to amplify and multiply those with experience and expertise in our world, instead of framing things as a way to replace the old way. So, I mean, New York's built up. There's trillions of dollars of stuff here. It's obvious that people know how to build things already. So how can we do it better? How can we make it easier? How can we make it safer? Not how can we reinvent the wheel that's already spinning perfectly well. So again, there's tons of opportunities to continue to improve. But for us, it's about not throwing out the baby with the bathwater and continuing to do what we do well and figuring out ways to tweak it to make it better, rather than, like scrapping the whole thing and starting again.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think so many people, like you said, kind of come with the idea of like the foreman is like, maybe I'll skip past this person to get to somebody like you in tech. But the way I kind of liken it is that person ends up being like when you bring a puppy home and your dad's like, we're not keeping this dog. And then a month later, like they're best friends and you're like, oh yeah. And I think more people need to go. So that's great to hear. Is just, I feel like you said, start talking VR and things like that. And people's heads go to a space that isn't really related to what we're trying to do, which actually has, practical function and, helps pass, like you said, those people's knowledge down to the next generation in a way that's, how we consume data now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll take this a step further. I mean, again, there are tons of technologies out there that we are unable to apply in our world right now, because of our customers and the environment that we work in. But like when I was at the ENR Future Tech conference that I met you guys at last year, and we heard a presentation about an airport that was built in BIM in a 5D model with live digital twins from the time of concept design. And then when they actually turned the airport on, the BIM that had been used during building was turned over into the building management system. And so now those 400 air conditioners and 12,000 water coolers and all of these other things were now live in a system that had been developed 10 years before they were actually put in place. So now we can do things like analytics on usage. We can do predictive maintenance. We can do all of these amazing things that help us save time and money because we had the forethought to start before we started. And that's something that is hard in public infrastructure like New York, where it's like, okay, we can fix it in a year, or we can make it gorgeous, brand new, the best in the world in 4 years. Well, the people of New York can't afford to not have this thing for 3 years. And so often the complaint is that we're band-aiding things, or that they, like the city is band-aiding instead of fixing problems. And we hope to see that these transitions will continue over the next 5 years or something. But again, we're not dealing in like clean greenfield construction where we get to imagine how to make it perfect and do that from day one. We're dealing with a messier and much more real world environment that requires somewhat of us continuing to do things in the way that they've been done before, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Not even just you guys specifically with transit, but with these Northeast cities, your New York, your Boston, these are massive cities, but are so old. It's like you said, it's a lot of challenges that come with, they're not, let alone a 3D, 4D model for a building. We can't even track down the original plan set for a building and, historical restorations, thing like that. I think you guys have a unique set of challenges that, maybe not other marketplaces deal with.
I mean, just to speak to the uniqueness of some of our challenges, and I'm sure people working in other cities, dealing with public agencies will speak to this. I was looking for some drawings to estimate square footage to get a quote for some BIM modeling stuff. And the as-builts that I was looking at were from 1968, like hand-drawn as-builts. That was something that I've never seen before. And so if I were to show that to like the developers of that airport I was just speaking about, they would laugh in my face. But that's the reality of our world. And to be honest, that's what makes working in New York City so interesting, is that the physical infrastructure we're dealing with, a lot of it is well over 100 years old. And a lot of like the systems infrastructure and the processes that we deal with are also decades old, and pretty ingrained. And so it takes a lot of creativity and problem solving to make progress in our world. And that's exciting for me.
That's an interesting point. And so from that perspective, and you guys with OpenSpace and these other tools that you're using are creating these new kind of as-built environments that can be worked on with you and other trades and the GC, and you're on the forefront of like making that change on a lot of these projects. How has a tech like OpenSpace helped with collaborating with the GC, the owner, and some other trades? Like, what has that experience been like with creating these new virtual environments?
Yeah, so I think the biggest benefit we've gotten out of being able to share OpenSpace has been with our design partners on design build jobs. So the public agencies in New York have been making, particularly the MTA, have started making big drives toward changing the contract structure from traditional rip read, lowest number wins, you guys build it, to design build, where we take on a lot more of the design considerations. We partner with the designers instead of the designers working for the agency. And it's a way for the MTA or the agencies to mitigate their risk somewhat. And it's an opportunity for us to really take control of these designs from day one and think about constructability and phasing and scheduling and all of these things in a collaborative way. So as we start working on these design builds, like I mentioned, the crosstown CBTC job, which is kind of like the shining exemplar of it right now. being able to share scans with our designers is amazing. And, you know, if you think that like a subject matter expert can't get out to the field often, the designers aren't like out there that much. And so they know what it looks like from every single angle that you could imagine on a computer screen, but have they seen it? And OpenSpace really adds a lot of context that helps guide these design conversations with the designers who, again, we maybe can't get out to the field as much as we'd like. And that's been a huge benefit for us, being able to like share that visual context with them and have much deeper conversations that don't require trying to bring 12 people out into the field and wasting a day of work as we go take these walks. So I think we've gotten massive benefits so far, and it's only just begun with our design partners on these design build contracts. And again, just because the way that those contracts have changed, the designer is really our collaborator and our partner now. And technologies like this allow us to feel that like we're on the same team and we're working together and we're sharing something. Because there is definitely some shaking of the old way where we maybe were on opposite sides of the aisle, you know? So OpenSpace has been huge for us in creating like shared visual language and solving problems as they happen, and just reacting a lot more quickly to things, to conditions as they come up in the field.
So on that point, like reacting more quickly, are you seeing, and I think you've only been with OpenSpace, like we've been a partner for 6 months, but in that time, have you been able to see like these reacting more quickly moments affect the schedule, affect budgets, affect like potential rework charges? Like, are you seeing that? Is that something you're already seeing early on, like using OpenSpace?
Yeah, so luckily for us, and maybe unluckily for the OpenSpace blurb here, is we have not yet had any like oh shit moment where OpenSpace has saved us from something. So we've luckily only been having to do like progress tracking and coordination efforts and not yet conflict resolution in any major ways. So again, good for us, maybe not so good for the marketing team, for you guys, but
I would say it's good for everybody. If there's no major issues happening, then everything's going smoothly.
I would say that's even more ideal, because I really think the whole idea behind OpenSpace is being able to have all these visuals is that you don't have to be reactive. And that, like you said, that oh shit moment is, we hope that having all of this data and information and sharing it with everybody, you can proactively get ahead of these things so there isn't that oh shit moment is really, I think, the ideal world that we would like to live in, because construction is very reactive. And I think it'd be a lot better for you guys. Like you said, it's like, it's great that we have the documentation in case there is that moment, but it's even better if we can just figure it out before we get to that point.
Yeah, totally. And again, this is something like when we were doing in our assessment process before we bought OpenSpace, there is that understanding that like maybe the biggest key feature of OpenSpace is one that you hope to never use, which is as an insurance policy in the case that something really goes wrong, whether that's a lawsuit or rework or something. I know I was speaking with a friend of mine who works for a competitor, and I was showing him OpenSpace before we had bought it. He goes, "Oh yeah, we use that. It won me a $12 million lawsuit." And I was like, did Colin call this guy and like have him set this? It was like, it was at a super social event. It was totally out of nowhere. But yeah, again, luckily that's not been something that we've had to address, but that is something that we were aware of when we assessed the software, that like the historical record keeping hopefully never has to matter, but if it ever does, it'll matter a lot, and we'll pay for the software itself in a single conflict resolution. So yeah, crossing our fingers that we don't ever have a good user story for you there. But if we do, we now will be more prepared for it than we ever would have been before.
I think more so, like what excites me more is the coordination you're able to implement now with the design team. Like when I worked at previous group, Level Set, they did a case study, and their focus was helping subcontractors and suppliers get paid quicker with mechanic lien rights, which was in a lot of ways kind of an aggressive way to force payment. But the study they did was like, what's the biggest reason why slow payments happen in construction? And it was lack of coordination. And like your point to, hey, the design team is, at the forefront of making sure everything is properly designed and being installed correctly. But if they're not able to physically make it out to the site, there's that lack of coordination of like, am I installing this right?
Mm-hmm.
Which probably is the reasons why there's so much of these, $12 million like claims that are happening in the future of a construction project. So it's exciting to hear how you guys are taking that more proactive approach with that reality capture and bringing everybody to the project when you physically can't, like, especially when a PM or your groups are overseeing 100 different projects.
Yeah, totally. And again, just to speak to the physical dislocation, and I'm sure like we have somebody listening in Texas who's driving 40 miles between sites laughing at me.
Oh, yeah.
So our innovation team, we work out of kind of our like HQ2, which is here in Midtown Manhattan, which we share with one of our ADA projects. And that just started up. And so they've been out doing surveys at all these stations, which are up to an hour and a half away from where we're sitting right now. They can pull up their capture, whoever went out and took the capture, they can pull it up while they're in the conference room eating lunch and just kind of take a walk around the station. Now, we won't break ground for another 4 months or something. But they're able to have dozens of conversations about real site conditions, different plans, different coordination efforts, 2, 4, 6 months out ahead of when they're going to happen. And it happens casually while they're eating sandwiches. It's not like, all right, let's go put on our boots and vests. We're spending the entire day walking the station. We can kind of like just beam into the space and think about it a little bit. And so it brought such a smile to my eyes when I saw that last week. I was so excited to see that. But yeah, it's really cool that we can, look, our people are amazing. And as you see with a lot of construction people, it's hard to go home from work. People are thinking about how am I going to install that thing while they're in bed trying to go to sleep. So lunchtime, for example, is an opportunity for us to think about these problems and think about coordination opportunities well before they're going to happen. And OpenSpace just makes that even easier and allows us to get even more out of those conversations that are happening anyway.
So one of the question I've been asking, one of the last questions I always like to ask is, if let's say you have our product teams here, what would you like to see in OpenSpace that could really help you, your team, and help take OpenSpace at that next level?
Yeah, I think, and I may have the inside track here because I've gotten to speak with some of your product folks lately, but the building out of the field notes like feature to become a feature set that includes things like punch lists is going to be huge. So to my point earlier about creating like a shared visual or like virtual visual context for the job, things that like a field note. So when you go in the viewer, it pops up wherever you put it, having that kind of like AR view of the world around you. It's like Pokemon Go, but construction. If I can start like dropping punch lists onto places that they have to go, or start dropping, like inspection forms I know I'm going to need to do. So we can start populating this digital space with more and more of like the physical documentation that we know is going to go along with it. And then I imagine you go and you take a walk down like a platform in OpenSpace and you can see, here's our 3 field notes about the things we're going to do. Over there, you can see the punch list. It's digitally hanging on the wall. Up ahead, we have this form that I know I'm going to need once I finish that leak mitigation. It's waiting for me right here. So just seeing that module kind of build out, I know that your company's goal is to have us spend more and more time using your product. And so building out that feature set to include even more of the things that we're looking to address there, is a pretty smooth way to do that. So I think field notes over the next year should be pretty interesting to watch grow. And we're excited for it.
Yeah, no, we are too, man. It's exciting. And I know you've had the opportunity to speak a handful of times with our product team. It's exciting for you to be able to provide that feedback and help direct and lead a lot of, our roadmap and what's going on. And that's something that we, OpenSpace does really well. Like I truly believe in. It's cool that we got to do this. I thought this was an awesome conversation today, and got the full gang here. So
Yeah, I appreciate your time, and thanks for having me, guys.
of course.
Absolutely.
All right, Jacob.
Have a great day. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed that. Jacob has been an awesome customer, awesome partner to work with, and had some really great insight. As I promised, I'll show everyone a demo. Usually during those conversations, we'll probably be hosting more of these type of webinars. Usually we'll have the customer share their screen and show their project, but just due to the type of project, they were not allowed to. So what I'm going to do is do a quick demonstration. I'll try to keep this under 10 minutes because I know we're coming up on time, but I'll take you through like a journey on this project and try to play it as if we were all stakeholders on this project together. So there's a handful of us in here, all from different groups, and we have a weekly meeting. Well, I'll have one of my PEs go out on the project that morning, and with this camera, this helmet, simply put the camera on their helmet, and all he'll do is open up the OpenSpace app in his phone, click the starting position on the floor plan, and that's it. And simply walk casually, walk around the site wherever they want. And once they're done and they're ready to upload those photos, what they'll do is just press the upload button. And within about 30 minutes, all of those photos will be uploaded and organized together. So then at around noon, when we all get together and we're all jumping into this project virtually, we will have an exact representation of what exactly is going on. And so Ben, I'll use you as an example because you asked for the demonstration. Let's say you were overseeing 5 different projects, and this is a major project with a major potential schedule delay that you have to attend, but you couldn't get it out. You couldn't make it out to the site that day. Well, now you can easily hop in and see, okay, here's where we're standing on the project, August 6th. We have the time of when this was captured. And we could see here with this map of the floor plan exactly where we're standing and what direction we're looking in. So as all of us as stakeholders, we can come together on this project without actually physically being there and have a conversation of the state of that project today. And so let's say, Ben, you weren't able to make it out there, but you noticed something that could lead to a potential dispute for your team. You can say, hey, look, like this pipe was not supposed to be installed yet. There were some other items that were supposed to be installed, or hey, on the schedule it says my team's supposed to be out there, but really the other trade had not finished their work for us to complete this portion of our work. So what you can do is drop a field note, and what that does, as Jacob was explaining, was automatically notates on the floor plan exactly where that field note was dropped and what direction you were looking at. It snaps a picture of where you're looking at on the desktop, and you can add descriptions. You can tag a status to it. You can assign it to somebody. You can add an email to alert anybody, specific tags, due dates that need to happen. But when you save that, that's now a living piece of information on this digital twin. And that's really the big value of how a lot of our customers view this. It's not just a notated item that is collected either in an email or a shared folder or on a 2D format. This is a living note within the actual project that can then be worked on and notated on. And so let's say we did have something that comes up, and there was a potential dispute between 2 trades where work collided, and we need to discover, what happened a month ago. Well, what we can do is we can look at the split screen and go back 1 month in time and have that exact representation side-by-side view of what the state looked like 1 month ago compared to today. We can even go back further. And you don't have to walk in the exact same spot. Just the general area will bring you close enough, as you can see here on this floor plan, in that general area to give you a good representation of that 2 different points in time. So then you could have a more structured, more professional conversation of, look, here's the work we completed, here's the work we did, here's the proof, instead of traditionally a lot of pointing fingers, or, as Jacob alluded to, spending hours looking through thousands and thousands of 2D photos in your phone trying to find the right photo you need. We got a question from Dale. If there is no service on the phone, will it still generate pictures? Yes, it will. So to capture, you don't need Wi-Fi, you don't need service. What you'll do, you'll connect the app in either your phone or your tablet to the Wi-Fi and the camera. After you're done taking the captures, you will need either Wi-Fi or service to upload the photos. So typically what our customers will do is do the capture, go back to the trailer, upload it. If there's no solid internet there, they can wait till they're back to the office or home to do it. Now let's say, Diego, you're in this meeting and you're a VDC member. I'm guessing that just based off the question you're asking. You might be something completely different. Bear with me here. Let's say you're a VDC member and you want to relay some information to the other stakeholders of like, hey, there could be some potential quality control issues here or some potential clash detections. So let's take a look all together at the side-by-side of the BIM model and what's actually being built. And so with this, it's as simple as taking your model and dropping it into the settings. There's a settings section in there. Drop folder, drop it in, and our system will align your model to the as-built environment. Very simple on your end. No work besides just dropping it in there. And what you'll be able to do is now anytime you move around in the actual as-built environment, that BIM model will follow with you. And so now you can have better conversations that will bridge the gap between your more technical VDC team members and the field team members, and having the conversations of, okay, what's actually, what was designed and what's actually being built. QC team members find this extremely valuable. One of my favorite partners that we work with, Chad Lux over at US Engineering, said his day-to-day was spent driving around from site to site, walking the site, notating items that he saw. Now he could spend, a few hours in the office and reach 10 different sites in a day with this side by side and drop any field notes of potential issues that he sees arising. He says it's night and day, like how much more efficient he is with his process. So that is the very high level basic overview of OpenSpace. With the BIM suites I was talking about, we are working on adding more solutions to this. For instance, save views, offline mode, BIM overlay. There's a lot we're working on. We know that's a very important feature that teams will utilize in regards to really bridging that gap between the field and office and the modeling and the as-built environment. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I highly recommend reaching out, where we can absolutely set up a demo or send you some material for you guys to look at. That being said, we will be sharing a screen in a moment of a QR code. Our product and marketing team has been hard at work on this. They've created a demo experience environment where you don't even need to talk to us yet. If you want to jump in and walk around an OpenSpace site without speaking with anybody and not dealing with us yet, feel free to go in and do that. This QR code will get you into a project that you can use side by side. You can navigate a project and feel the experience of it. And if you want to learn more, please don't hesitate to reach out. We got one more question. We're talking about scaling board. That's a good question. If we're talking about scaling, what are your thoughts on low latency and storage format and compression? Are you saying to better understand your question, are you asking about if you had a lot of projects with a lot of data. Are we able to take as many captures as we possibly can to capture the data we need without running into storage issues? Yes. So our customers are not running into, we partner with Amazon Web Service. So the storage from a cloud data standpoint, you're never going to have an issue. You can upload as many as you're contractually like allowed to upload, and that's a conversation if you want to learn more you could have with your account executive. But from a camera standpoint, yeah, if this hits, its limit, you just delete the photos, but make sure the photos were first uploaded into the cloud, which then our AI will process it and give you that digital twin that I just showed you. And once that's there, it's the limit is the camera. And once you've hit your limit on the camera, just delete the photos and you can continue capturing. So you won't see a limitation standpoint on a scalability level. I hope that answered your question. I'm not the most technical person when it comes to those technical questions, so bear with me. Cool. Thumbs up. Yeah, I'll hang around for 2 more minutes, it looks like, however long we need to answer any more questions. But I absolutely recommend jumping into this demo experience. I think you'll find it extremely valuable if you want to get a feel for OpenSpace. All in all, though, it's one thing that Jacob alluded to is like the big kind of concern most companies have is adoption. If I make an investment, will this product work? Will my team use it? I think you'll find through this demo experience how easy it is to navigate around OpenSpace, how simple it is. But really, just the experience of connecting to the Wi-Fi, clicking your starting point and going really is as simple as connecting to your AirPods. And the one of the coolest things I've heard from a customer was to use and set. Thank you, Thomas, for backing me up on that. I'm not just crazy. He said one of the coolest analogies I heard is like with this information, like information is power. I feel like on projects now, I'm doing math and calculus with a calculator, while a lot of companies who are not utilizing AI, which I know is a buzzword, but it really is driving just crazy inefficiencies, are still doing, math with paper and pen. And the ability to make quicker decisions, to bring more people to the table, are helping a lot of our customers stay ahead of schedule and on budget. And yeah, if there's no more questions, we're about to hit time. And I just want to thank everybody again for coming today, for getting the opportunity to hear Jacob. I love talking with that guy. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. info@openspace.ai. Thanks, y'all.